One of my good friends, Griefdrums, fellow content creator, not playing a lot of Siege anymore. And his big thing is that, he feels the game has gone from a tactical shooter to a hero shooter. And when you watch this trailer, man, you really have to agree with him.
So there you have it. GetFlanked just made a video reacting to the very first trailer for Rainbow Six. And he obviously mentioned me in there. And I kind of wanted to do a bit of a, a response video, I guess, to some of the points that he raised in his. Now, if you want to watch his video, the link is going to be down in the description below. But we're going to cover some of the things that he mentions, and I kind of am going to give my response to those. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Okay, so what we're going to do is, obviously, you heard that little bit of the intro. He's watched the entire trailer, and he starts discussing some of the points that I have made. We've had discussions about this in the past in his stream. But we're going to watch some of the things that he says, and then I'm going to just kind of react to them, if that makes sense.
And you don't have to necessarily agree that that's a bad thing. That's a bad thing in his opinion because he appreciates a different style of game. But watching this trailer, it is very apparent how far Siege has moved from its roots.
Right. So the first thing I want to cover here is obviously the trailer itself. What are we on here? We're on 1352. This is really confusing for me because obviously there's 2 YouTube bars now. So it's probably going to be 3 for you if you're watching this on YouTube. It's going to be like Inception. Bad enough for loads of video cameras as it is. But the gameplay itself from the trailer is incredibly scripted. And I will be the first to admit that. I am aware that it's an incredible trailer. It really sold the game, but it's insanely scripted. And I just want to go on record as saying that the game, no matter how it released, will never truly play like that because it's all down to the people that are playing. You're always going to get your Bolos. You're always going to get your Skittles, your Noteds, people that are going to push the boundaries of a video game. And there is nothing wrong with that. But I'm aware that you will never truly ever get a tactical game like this unless you have the right mindset of the people playing it. Does that make sense?
His big thing is that, he feels the game has gone from a tactical shooter to a hero shooter. And when you watch this trailer, man, you really have to agree with him.
Now, when I talk about the game going from a tactical shooter, I'll try again in English. When I talk about the game going from a tactical shooter, it's never truly embraced the tactical shooter. And again, I'd like to go on record as saying I'm aware that that's the case. When it first dropped, there were elements of a tactical shooter in there. It was more grounded in reality. I'm not going to say realism because I know it's going to get a load of people's backs up. But I would just like to define the difference between realism and grounded in reality or immersion. When the game dropped, it was based on real life CTUs. There was the fast time to kill, which was trying to base it in reality. And there were a lot of elements that tried to keep it grounded. Now, the problem with that is you can't fully embrace realism. You never can in video games. And a first prime example is going to be the gadgets and the batteries and stuff like that. The wall reinforcements. You could make that as realistic as possible. You could have a great big pile of them somewhere in the building, and the defenders have to physically drag them all the way around the map to where they want them to be. That's going to be boring as hell. It's going to waste loads of time. No one's going to want to do it. So you can keep it grounded in reality to the point that bullets aren't going to penetrate these. You can set them up to reinforce a wall. That still kind of makes sense. But you need to find a good way to get them there. Being able to store them in invisible pockets. Being able to store 3-4 car batteries inside of invisible pockets. These are gameplay elements that you're going to kind of have to just sort of... How can I explain it? You kind of just have to take it for what it is. It's a video game at the end of the day. If you try and base it too much in reality, you just remove the point of playing the game anyway. It was based in tactical realism, or, there was a tactical element there, but it's never truly been a tactical shooter.
Watching that, it's very easy to say, oh my God, that looks so cool. I want to play a game like that. That's that slow paced, and that's that tactical. Here's the problem with that. As they're moving through the map all slow and stuff, one person hiding in a corner that doesn't get droned out can come up behind them and just kill them all.
But is that not the point? Is that not the point of the game? The point of it is to play as a team, and as you go into a room, it's to respectively clear your corners. And if you don't do that, then you get punished. Now, this leads back into the speed of the game. Now, Rainbow Six, when it first started, was a lot slower paced. The movement speed was slower. The leaning animations were slower. Pretty much everything in the game was slower. As time has gone on, things have sped up and sped up and sped up to the point that now you're not going to be able to slowly move through the map like that, because somebody can just run up and knife you all very, very quickly. And they can flick around, you know. And that is impacting on the way it plays. Now, with the games, you cannot speed them up and then slow them down. It doesn't work. The community will kick off like there is no tomorrow. It just will not happen, because people get used to the fluidity and the way that the game works and the way the game plays. Remember when the leaning actually got nerfed and slowed down, and rather than fully leaning, your character now kind of just wiggles their hips. Your head stays exactly where it is, whereas previously you would lean out from behind cover. When that was first introduced to counter the lean spam, the community kicked off royally. People were crying and crying all over Twitter, in the comments of YouTube videos. People were not happy. And that just goes to show, you know, you cannot slow a game down. If you were to speed it up, 90% of the community will be happy with it. 10% will say, this is ridiculous. But you can't ever go the other way. And I understand that. I do understand that. I think if Siege hadn't have sped up, it would have been better for the longevity of the game. But anyway, we'll continue.
As they were sitting in there, droning out the basement and stuff, one static camera being up, one Valkyrie camera being up, and a nitro cell kills them all.
It does. Hence why you have to be concerned with spacing in tactical games. You also have to be concerned with having cover out in tactical games. And these are all elements of Siege that you previously had. Now, to me, certainly just before I left the scene, it very much felt like you kind of just do your own thing. Certainly in solo queue, nobody ever tries to team up and to help, you know. How often have you sat there and covered for somebody else that was droning while you're solo queuing, or while they were, you know, it's, if you're in a stack and you're going in, yes, you'll sort of go and do that and you'll try and map clear a little bit and roam clear. But even then, 90% of the time, people don't really bother doing that anymore. They just have their own game plan. And I love Flanked, but he is a prime example of this. He will play Amaru, and he will have a game plan of, I'm going in on Consular, I'm going up through the hatch, and I'm going to be the first one into the room with the diffuser. I'm going to clear them out. You know, it's not team-centric. It's not based in teamwork. It's based on, I'm going to get away with this for content. And I would like to just go on record as saying, I have absolutely nothing against that. That's the way the game plays. And quite frankly, the way creators like Macy J and stuff have created the community and the setup for what content is required from creators, you kind of need to do that to even register on people's radar as a creator. And it was something, I mean, it's something I've never enjoyed doing. I've always wanted it to be very team-centric, and all of my content on Siege was always team-based. It was always showcasing how, as a group, we could systematically clear through a map and push people out. So, you know, I would happily run across an open room knowing that they're going to shoot at me, so the next person that is fragging into the room can trade that kill back and we can get the win. You wouldn't see some of the biggest creators in Siege ever doing that, because they are going to be the one that's taking the bullet. They're going to be the one that's dying for the good of the team, but it doesn't create that content. And it's something that, you know, definitely I feel hurt my content. But at the same time, it's something I've always been very focused on. I don't know whether that's a mistake of mine, I guess. Well, yeah, it is, isn't it?
Okay. The fact is that you can talk about having a tactical game like this, a slow-paced game like this, but as long as the movement and the leaning and the high fire rate guns exist, one person with a good timing and okay gun skill can completely throw all of those plans to the side and wreck around.
But that's the reality of any sort of war or battles or gunfights, isn't it? You know, you see these films with Rambo running in there and taking out everybody. The reality is some little dude hiding in a bush just next to him, not moving, can just single bullet and the dude is dead. And those stakes are what force you to drone effectively and to clear effectively. If you push through a door and you don't have the intel, you want one person cutting left, one person cutting right, and you want to systematically clear the room as you go in. Yeah, I don't know.
And unfortunately, as much as you want a game like that to exist, it can't really exist unless the game is extremely cumbersome. Maybe cumbersome is not the right way. Extremely deliberate in its movement mechanics, shooting mechanics, and recoil.
I agree with all of that. I fully agree with all of that. But do you not think that that's how Siege was when it first released? Siege was a lot more deliberate. The recoil, you know, I mean, even the one thing I would say is the number of bullets that people have definitely plays a factor as well. It's a big contributing factor to the way the game is currently played. You don't ever need to worry about ammo. You can pre-fire every single corner that you swing. You can shoot through every single wall in the game and just spam bullets around left, right, and center. If Siege implemented the tactical realism model that it previously had, where if you shoot half of your magazine and then reload, the next time you come back to that magazine, you've only got half a mag. If people had to be more conservative with their ammo and actually utilize their noodle as to how many rounds they've got left in that mag, the game will play completely differently. Completely differently. One thing I'd like to cover right now very quickly is the esports scene. For me personally, I would much prefer it if the pro level had to play not necessarily tactical realism, but a really restricted way, you know, so they don't have much information. And I know that they're already limited, but I would have ranked play more the way that the pro scene does, so that you don't get points. You can't see points. You can't see if you've downed people or injured anybody. I would love it if you had all of that removed so that there was a decent skill level there required. You have to pay more attention to your surroundings. And then casual should be more like ranked, where it's just, you know, you've got that much time and you can see everything that's going on to learn the game more.
And I feel like you kind of have to choose, but we're getting off topic there. That's like the number one thing that comes to mind for me is watching that is just, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are like, that game looks a lot more fun than the current Siege that we're playing. There are games out there, not that have the destruction that I'm aware of, but that are more slow and deliberate than what Siege is.
So I think there, Flank's alluding to games like 0 Hour, potentially even Ground Branch, stuff like that. Unfortunately, these aren't from AAA companies and don't quite have the budget that they have. The games are still phenomenal nevertheless, though, and they're games that I've had a lot of fun playing. The difficulty is they don't have the reach. They really don't. If you're interested in a slightly more tactical version of the game, but still very similar to Siege, 0 Hour is definitely one to check out. It's not quite as polished. It's not going to be. But the concept that they're running with is really cool. Definitely. Okay, so I'm not gonna go through the rest of it because I appreciate this video is long enough as it is, and there's a lot of waffle and droning. But a couple of closing points I guess I just want to go over is the fact that Siege has changed a lot over its lifetime, and that's not a bad thing. Siege initially changed because of the fact that there wasn't a massive amount of viewership, and the esports scene really created the game and turned it into what it is today, and there is no taking away from that. The reason that the game has changed the way it has is because it was gaining the viewership. I think the devs were a little bit misguided as to what it was about that created the viewership, and I also think that they're too easily influenced by the community's input when the community doesn't necessarily know what it wants. And before you jump down my throat for that, Buff Blitz was a hashtag that was really pushed on things like Twitter and Reddit, and it actually turned out that Buff Blitz was a very bad idea, and he subsequently got nerfed. And there's been loads of other movements like that to get changes into the game that very quickly fell off because they were wrong. So maybe the community doesn't always know what's best. I think the devs sometimes need to stand by their beliefs. Although having said that, I think Just lately, there's been more prioritization in building up lore and backstories for characters rather than utilizing that money for those people on the payroll, and instead getting somebody onto the payroll that can quite literally sit there and just remove cheaters from the game. You know, for me, a lot of the elements of teamwork have just slowly disappeared. I mean, I watched something the other day. I watched like 5 seconds of someone's clip, and I swear I saw 2 secondary hard breaches on somebody. Now, I haven't played Siege in 7 months or so, so I don't know if that was right. I don't know if I saw that right. But if that person had 2 secondary hard breaches, you've completely removed all of the elements of teamwork that was in the game. The requirement to take someone on hard breach, somebody on, you know, hard breach assistance, almost like a Thatcher or a Twitch or an IQ. You've broken down the support elements and the assault elements of a team, and you said everybody just go and do what you want. You know, you wanna play as Amaru and just zip in through a window, go for it. Who cares about hard breach? We'll give you a secondary hard breach so that you can still sort of get through walls and you don't need to rely on anybody else. That is removing all the teamwork elements from the game, you know? And I find that really frustrating. I think another problem is the fact that the gadgets have had to get more and more crazy every single time that a new operator comes out. Do you remember when Black Ice came out? Buck got a shotgun, an underbarreled shotgun. He's still one of the best operators in the game. If you give him his nades back, he will be the best operator in the game. With a simple gadget. Sledge, still a staple, you know? An absolute staple of the team with a ridiculously simple gadget. I don't think operators need crazy gadgets that do 500 different things. Now, Tachanka is a prime example of this. Imagine if he'd have kept his original turret, but you put a Monty shield on the front of it. Covers the whole body. Covers literally the whole body. You can still take him out from the side. He's got a limited turn-in circle, but he can then be used to lock down entire corridors, and there's very little you can do. If he has to partner up with a Jaeger to prevent grenades and stuff from taking him out, or a Wamai to prevent Capital from taking him out, these are all things that can play into the game and to that teamwork and cohesion that the devs aren't doing. Instead, they give Tachanka the ability to run around and essentially be a budget smoke. I don't know, man. I think some of the decisions are just plain wrong. But hey, listen, if people still enjoy the game, that's great. For me, though, I feel it's moved more towards just a run and gun. And I think the Steam numbers kind of showcase that I'm not the only one. It's a shame. It's a real shame because I loved the game. I really did. It's just slowly drifted further and further away. And the addition of things like rim lighting, don't get it. Don't get it. Anyway, ladies and gents, I'm going to leave you to it. I have waffled for far too long. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I appreciate not everyone's going to agree with me, but I guess, you know, it happens. I will catch you in the next one, I guess. See you later.